What is up, guys and gals? It is the Sound Alchemist, and today I'm back to bring you 40 facts on the Warhammer 40k universe. This time, we'll be going over some awesomeness in the Dark Eldar form. So if you guys watched our 40 facts on the weapons and war gear of the Harlequins, no, not the Harlequins, the Homunculi, you saw a little bit of information on these guys, the Grotesques. So Grotesques are essentially basically slaves or whatever that are created by other races via the homunculus. So it's it sucks being a slave of the Dark Eldar, because you get tortured, you basically get flayed, you get killed, well, almost killed, because they take pleasure in seeing you suffer and have pain, or sometimes they just make you into a grotesque. Now I'm going to give you some lore on the Grotesque, as well as a little story that has to do with the Tau and the Dark Eldar. So without further ado, guys, let's jump into today's lore on the Grotesque. So like I said before, Grotesques are hulking monsters of muscle and bone created by the Dark Eldar homunculi. Unlike the Raks, none join the ranks of the Grotesques voluntarily. Grotesques are often created from prisoners of the homunculi. The process of becoming a Grotesque is extremely long and painful. The victim is injected with growth elixirs, macrosteroids, and muscle stimulants. Eventually, the victim's bone growth is driven into hyperactivity by the injection of the ocerovirals, resulting in external spines sprouting from the victim. Near the end of the process, perhaps many years later, the hands of the poor victim are then replaced with metal claws or dripping tubes that can inject sprays of blood ichor. At this stage of the transformation, Grotesques are mostly lobotomized, and so will mindlessly obey their homunculus master. Last of all, the victim's horrifying face is then covered with a mask of black iron. The biggest and most ferocious of Grotesques are known as aberrations, and they are granted by the homunculi far more deadly weapons than their claws. These weapons are usually gauntlets or other integrated weaponry, since Grotesques are not intelligent enough to truly wield weapons. On the battlefield, Grotesques are usually used as line breakers. They are sent to the front line of an attack force, and they will kill relentlessly until commanded otherwise. There have also been reports that sometimes these Grotesques fight amongst themselves, usually due to the various steroids and stimulants flowing within their bodies. Now, a Grotesque that has killed its fellows usually dies at the hand of a Dark Eldar, sometimes by Cabalites, witches, or their homunculus masters. And that's pretty much all the lore there is on these Grotesques. If you want some more lore on them, I believe the Dark Eldar Codex, which basically isn't viable anymore due to 8th edition, has a few more tidbits into it. But for now, I want to read you guys the story of the War of Dark Revelations. So basically this has to do with the Tau, the Dark Eldar, and a little bit of the Tyranids. So let's jump into that lore. After barely repelling High Fleet Gorgon, the Tau Empire gained a new fear of the Tyranid swarm. Now under the threat from a tendril of High Fleet Kraken, the Tau desperately sought an advantage anywhere they could. It was at this desperate time when a Dark Eldar homunculus named Urian Rakarth contacted the Tau High Command, and he made a proposal. He and his homunculi coven, the Prophets of Flesh, would join the war against the Tyranids in return for what he called a cultural exchange. Looking for allies anywhere they could, the Tau eagerly agreed. Initially, the new alliance seemed to be working out marvelously. Rakarth's soldiers, grotesque but mighty scythe-limbed bare-chested warriors, managed to inflict terrible losses on the Tyranids on the Tau Sept of Vigos. These fiendish creations seemed nearly impervious to any kind of pain, and despite taking heavy losses, the silent warriors were decisive in turning back the Tyranid advance. These abominations were soon aided by legions of homunculi, Talos Pain engines, and Chronos Parasite engines. Even though the homunculi's warriors were stomach-churning, they had turned the tide on a dozen fronts, and the Tau were highly impressed. But soon Urian Rakarth's appearance before the Tau once more, he was demanding his price. 77 Tau from each caste were giving over to him, including 7 ethereals. Though the Tau deemed the ethereal price unacceptable, they were prepared to pay almost any other price for the greater good of their empire, and they agreed to Rakarth's terms. delivering the Tau tithe by Manta through a crackling dark Eldar portal in the sky. The next phase of the war against High Fleet Kraken began, and it was more of a focused counterattack. Once more, the Prophets of Flesh of Uri and Rakarth agreed to aid the Tau, battling the Tyranids alongside Tau fire warriors. The Dark Eldar deployed a new weapon, a long-limbed Grotesque that moaned in despair as they hacked through the Tyranid horde. After 6 days of carnage, the Tau and the insidious creations of Rakarth were victorious. However, a terrible suspicion began to dawn. Video captures from Tau drones showed that the Grotesques of Rakarth were a blue-gray coloration all too familiar to the Tau. Mere seconds after the Tau realized to their horror what had become of their cultural exchange, Rakarth demanded via video screen that the Tau hand over 7 ethereals, or 7,077 other Tau in their place. Realizing the kind of monster Rakarth was, the outraged Tau refused to deal and became determined to punish the homunculus lords for his crimes. Mobilizing their fleet reserves from the nearby planet, Rubicon, the Tau made course for Rakarth's fleet in orbit. However, the homunculi fleet turned out to be nothing but mirages and empty space. Confused, the Tau then received a desperate message from Commander O'Shaiv, detailing that Rubicon was now under attack by Rakarth's forces. Rubicon was left completely undefended, and it was now the subject of a massive bloodbath that saw even Supreme Overlord of Kamara, Asdrubal Vect himself, and his Cabal of the Black Heart involved in the fray. The Prophets of Flesh deployed thousands of Raks, Grotesques, and Pain Engines with overwhelming power, and they quickly overthrew the few Tau defense forces. When Tau reinforcements finally arrived, they found Rubicon to be a barren world, its populace stolen away to the horrors of Kamara. And with that, that brings us to the end of yet another 40k lore video. What did you guys think about these Grotesques? In my opinion, they're pretty cool. I like the design a lot, but I hate that they had to do this to my Tau. No! But anyway guys, that's a pretty cool story, pretty cool lore. We will get into Uri and Rakarth's storyline and lore later on, but we also have to get into the assassins, so like the Vindicare, the Colexis and all that, because you guys really like that stuff, so got a lot of requests for it, so it's coming soon. Also guys, hit us up on Facebook. We post there each and every day. We also have a Patreon page if you guys want to support us. It's only $1 a month. That's like a McDouble a month. Also, we do have a Twitter and an Instagram page for more things 40k related. Anyway guys, that's all the time I have for you today. As always, I'm the Sound Alchemist, part of One Mind Syndicate, and I am signing out.